as we go through. This will all be recorded and, of course, put on scale for any of your colleagues that would like to catch up on this as well. So for those that I don't know, my name's Sophie Day. I'm Head of Community at BGF, and delighted to welcome Flourish today to run a session on the Sales Academy, and they're going to talk through this really exciting program, what it entails, and how you and your teams can get involved. This is really a session for you to all ask any questions, kind of really dig into the details. So if you can have your cameras on and interact, that would be great. And please do ask as many questions as you need to find out more about this great program. So without further ado, I will hand over to Bryn, who is going to lead the session today.
Great. Thanks, Sophie, and good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Brilliant, brilliant. That's not normally a problem with my voice. So I just thought we'd start with a few very quick introductions. The good news is we haven't got many slides. I know that nobody ever sat down after a 45-minute presentation to go, I wish that had gone on for 10 more minutes. So we really want this to be as interactive as possible. Ask us as many questions as you like. And the good news is we've actually got everybody on who's going to be leading the training, which is unusual because normally they're in a classroom. So we got lucky today. I'm Bryn Thompson. I'm Strategic Partnerships Director for Apprentify. I work across the group, and Flourish is our go-to-market business that we formed about 18 months ago. We're a very fast-growing company. As you may or may not have heard of us, we're going to go through that, but we're not going to talk too much about ourselves today. I've been in sales since, I'm not going to give you the year, but it's over 40 years. I like to say I started when I was 10, but nobody believes that anymore. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you the presentation, but also getting as much feedback as possible from the floor. Please feel free to interject, interrupt, ask any questions through the slides. We don't want to wait till the end for questions. Please feel free at any time to either raise your hand or put something in the chat. So I'm going to introduce now Matthew Haig. Matt and I worked together for many years. Matt, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Good morning, and thanks very much for investing the time today. So as Bryn said, I'm Matthew Haig. I'm the Managing Director for our commercial training solutions within our Flourish operating company within Apprentify Group. So whatever happens from a delivery point of view and an output point of view, it falls into my solution. And ultimately, that is supporting organizations' growth strategies by skilling their go-to-market teams. And what does that mean? It usually falls into sales, sales leader, and sales manager. And those are the content areas that the team are going to talk you through today. So hi, everybody, and thanks again for joining this call today.
Okay, now we'll introduce Ellie Sellers. Ellie is head of our commercial training. Ellie.
Perfect. Thank you, Bryn. Morning, everyone. So my name is Ellie Sellers, and I sit as our Head of Commercial Training Delivery for Flourish across Apprentify Group. Really excited to be here today to talk more around the three academies that we would like to support your businesses in becoming those high-performing sales organisations, which is at the heart of everything we do at Flourish. So I'm really excited to hear the questions and also get you all excited about what we're offering today. And I will hand over to Anthony.
Thank you, Ellie. Good morning, all. So my name is Anthony Profit. Great to see you. In terms of my role within Flourish, I'm a sales trainer. So I specialise mainly in emerging sales careers talent, so early careers typically. So it would be myself who's running the Emerging Sales Academy, which is, again, targeted at typically quite new to role, and it's all around increasing confidence and ability in that early careers within sales. So I'll hand over to Maurice now, I believe.
Morning, everyone. So my name is Maurice Kirkham. I'm also one of the sales trainers here at Flourish. My speciality will be the kind of mid-level academy, that advanced sales academy, taking people who are billers or that kind of account management, BDMs, etc., and helping them become even better at the role, producing more revenue, coaching, management, etc. So yeah, I'll be getting involved in that level. And yeah, thank you all for being here today. We're super excited to present what we have to offer.
Great. We better stop because it's a bit like saying when the Waltons say goodnight to each other. If anybody remembers the Waltons, it seemed to take forever. But I'm probably predating a lot of you there. Anyway, can we put the first slide up, please, Ellie? So I think the first question is why the Sales Academy? And for those who've known me a long time, and some have known me for too long, I always like to start with a quick story. And this is a true story. It happened to me about 10 years ago. I was flying back from Spain and I was over the Bay of Biscay and there was a loud sort of bang and I was sort of sitting near the wing. And the next thing I knew, it sounded like trying to start up a car on a cold winter's morning, that kind of, but not actually working. And I realised we'd had an engine failure. Now, on those planes, there are only 2 engines. And when you're over the sea, it's a little scary. There were people crying on board. There was a bunch of young lads behind laughing, saying we're all going to die, which wasn't really helpful. Anyway, next thing, we did start to see the south coast of France, and the pilot very calmly said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think you've probably gathered we're experiencing a few technical issues, and just as a precaution, we're going to land in Bordeaux," which is basically an emergency landing. And the plane's listing, it's strange, but he landed it perfectly. And what I never really thought about then is you don't just need a new plane, you need a whole new crew because they can't fly the timers out. And it took about 12 hours. We were there in Bordeaux airport. When we got on the new plane, the crew were at the back of the plane. And as soon as the safety belt signs went off, I went down to see the captain and I said, "Can I ask, was that an engine failure?" He said, "Yes, it was." I said, "How often does that occur?" He said, "Mid-flight, extremely rare." And then he said something that's always resonated with me. I said, "Well, I just wanted to congratulate you. You landed it brilliantly." He was telling me you're supposed to land it on automatic pilot, but he landed it manually because he thought it was smoother. He's a cool guy. And what he said, which stuck, was, he said, when you think about it, he said, every 6 months, he said, we go back into the simulator. And we don't learn how to fly the plane, we learn what to do when something goes wrong. And it got me thinking, gosh, our life was in that guy's hands at the time, and he and his crew were incredibly calm and did an amazing job. Shook his hand and went back. And I suddenly thought, in business, it's okay, it's not life or death, but your sales teams and your sales people are really your pilots going out there, really winning the business. Without that business, the business doesn't function. And yet, we can put somebody from a technical and operations role into sales, from Friday to Monday and expect them to succeed. And I've been doing this probably for 20 odd years now, and I was a sales director for many years. And a lot of these people have had very, very little training, and yet we expect them to succeed. And it got me thinking, there's only probably 2 professions in the world that there's no barrier to entry. You don't need a qualification to join. One is sales, and interestingly, and probably poignantly, when you look at what's happening in America and probably over here for the last few years, the other is the people who run the country. So it's sort of a crazy situation. So I think the aim of the academy is something short, sharp, but really focused, that's going to drive ROI, that's going to make those sales pilots, if you like, actually make sure they succeed more often. They're able to know what happens when things go wrong. We know sales, things go wrong all the time. How do you fix them? So 3 areas we're looking at here is how do we boost the capability of teams at all levels. And I want to talk a little bit more when we get into management about what happens when your best sellers get promoted and the kind of Peter principle that happens there, where we reach a new level of incompetence because we have to start managing and leading teams and nobody's shown us how to do that. How do we really fast track the growth? Getting away from founder-led C-level people being so heavily involved in every deal. And also thinking about some of the non-financial benefits, like how does that actually improve employee engagement? How does it help you recruit people if knowing you've got really good training systems in place? And ultimately, how does it mean those people will stay and we can build a succession plan? So we want to do this without taking people out of the business too often. We're going to go through what an academy will look like and what sort of involvement will be required from participants, and also what's it going to cost. I think the whole purpose of this is with all BGF-backed companies being able to join a cohort, we should be able to reduce the cost of a training intervention that you do for yourselves. As Matt will probably say quite rightly as well, though, if you do want to do your own training, we can also help with that area. I think this is just a great way, particularly if you've got maybe smaller teams or only one or two managers, you don't have to pay a day rate in the same way you would on a normal training program. So it's going to be really ROI focused. We will go into a little bit about what we do, but we have two sort of strands to our business. We have an apprenticeship business, and for that we have to go through a very rigorous Ofsted rating, and we are Ofsted outstanding, which puts us in the top 2% of all training providers. So we've had to go through a pretty rigorous process to win that accolade. So before I go on, please feel free, if you've got any questions about why we're doing it, to raise them now. Otherwise, happy to move on to the next slide. So if you see somebody's hands raised, please interject, because I can't see everyone. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 programs. We wanted to make it a bit of a catch-all. So we thought, the Emerging Academy, you bring a lot of new people into the business, people at SDR level, maybe people who haven't been in sales, maybe they've moved from a customer services role or they're in customer success, and you want them to become more sales aware, or they may be in pre-sales or a technical role and you think they've got the capability but don't really have the basis to understand the structure and framework of what makes a good sales process. So, Anthony, would you like to very briefly talk about some of the things you do on the Emerging Academy? I know you've run a lot of them and you've had some great feedback, but it'd be great to hear from you in terms of what you think people will learn and get out of that academy.
Of course, thank you, Bryn. So, first and foremost, my main efforts, if you like, on those initial workshops is really just to increase their confidence, their motivation, their reason why, I guess, for picking up the phone, and what is it that drives them, what is it that motivates them, and then ultimately putting a little bit more ownership onto that individual. So, I encourage them to be able to really dig into and understand what their current KPIs and their targets are. But then I also run an activity whereby they're able to set those themselves. And I often find that they're often more ambitious than actually what their sales managers may actually set them, because they're young, they're new to sales, they want to make a good impression. And as Bryn rightly said there, it's just about giving them that little bit of structure in order to make sure that what they're doing is best practice. So it's giving them a nice structure and what to implement. It's tried and tested. It's worked well against across multiple sectors, which I've trained over my 10 years in sales training. So I do think that's one of, if not the most crucial aspect of any business. It's getting those initial SDRs on the phones, confident, and having some really great conversations, and that's ultimately going to drive that revenue and drive that ROI.
And Bryn, can I just interject there? I think I'll obviously allow the rest of the team to speak across the other 2 units, but the Emerging Academy function for us usually is around net new revenue creation. So it's individuals who are tasked with finding new opportunities for your organizations to create new revenue lines. And that can be from the very cold instance of, hey, this is a market we have success in. We work with 10 organizations within it. There's 90 we're not talking through. So how do we make contact with those individuals and usually book a next step or a meeting for somebody more experienced to take over? So I think Emerging Academy is usually related to net new revenue opportunities to help you grow, but it can also sometimes be new revenue opportunities in existing spending clients. So it doesn't have to be net new, but it's a business development function to skill, ultimately, just pragmatically putting it like that.
Yeah, and just let me throw a question out here, and I think this doesn't just apply to Emerging Academy, but also to more experienced salespeople. Who thinks that we probably over the years become over-reliant on email? I can't see everyone because the presentation's up, but if anyone's got an opinion on that, I've certainly got a fairly strong one that email is not a tool to influence and persuade people. It's sometimes a way to hide behind and say, well, I've sent a lot of emails out, but what have I actually got back for it? We do believe, okay, a lot of thumbs going up, great. We do believe in, if you like, in some ways old school, but also new school. So old school in that you cannot beat having a conversation with another human being. So pick up the phone and get prospecting, but don't just rely on the old school methods of going through lists. Now there's got to be a much better cadence to prospecting, which can involve social media, it can involve email, it can involve a whole raft of ways of connecting, but there's also got to be more research done in terms of who am I speaking to, what potential challenges could they be having in that particular sector and why, and trying to find that hook to land on where somebody wants to have a further conversation. I'll always say to people at that level, look, you're not trying to sell anything, you're trying to get engage somebody's interest to have a further conversation, then qualify whether there are mutual grounds to talk further. And that's basically what this academy will focus on. I realise there are some people, probably businesses, that will sell over the phone. Great question from John. At the moment, we don't have multilingual options. They are only in English. We have trained people in other countries, and that's something we could definitely consider, Matt. I know you've done quite a lot, and I have over the years, across Europe with different trainers in different nationalities. At the moment, it's in English, but Matt, any views on that?
Yeah, so ultimately for this academy program, it's all English-based. I think one of the follow-ups from this is if an organisation has a specific need for them and their team, we primarily focus on bespoke solutions, and we have a network of individuals who can do that in language or in country. So maybe we pick that one up after, but the academy at the moment is English only. Yeah.
Okay, well, good question. Okay, so moving on, unless anyone's got any other questions around the Emerging Academy, I think the modules there are fairly clear. How do we create what I'd call certainly in tech terms, how do you get an MQL to convert to a well-qualified SQL? So a good sales qualified lead, so that these people very often are doing the grunt work for your more experienced people. I think they're really important. We do have, I'm not trying to do an upsell here, but we do help find that emerging talent as well. We have a great business that does that. But our attitude is always recruit people with the will and train them. And we've grown our own business that way as well. So I'd like to move on then to the Advanced Academy. Ellie, what do you think the aim of this program is, and what are you looking for people to get out of it as a real output?
Yeah, of course. Great question, Bryn. So I think when we look at the Advanced Academy, building on what Anthony's already shared around the Emerging Academy, these are for those individuals that are typically seasoned or sit in more of a senior seller role. So you can see some examples of roles on there. And what we're looking at for those individuals is going back to the why, but looking at it more of a deeper level. So as you can see here, that advanced discovery, looking at that deeper level of questioning, being able to peel apart all of those layers within an account and a customer to really be able to articulate the value of what your solution brings. looking at presenting, creating insights. How do they tell those stories with the value propositions, and looking at those advanced negotiation tactics. To build on what Matt shared there around the emerging talent, looking at that net new revenue stream, the Advanced Academy will look more in detail around the conversion rates. How do we expand into the white space of the existing accounts that you have, or look at expanding the opportunities within the net new space as well? So I think when we look at the difference between that emerging academy and the Advanced Academy, looking at a slightly different role set, which comes with responsibilities, different objectives and KPIs. And it's about those individuals that are doing all areas of the sales cycle. So ensuring that they're presenting compelling value propositions, and then looking at closing to those next steps as well. And again, those examples of jobs that are just examples, but starting to think about how we can look at that Advanced Academy level and get the most out of your sellers that maybe have never had training before. Maybe they've always learned being on the role, and that's great for sales, but how do we formalize some of that training to get the most out of those individuals within your business?
Yeah, just to add to that, if we're talking to people about the need for training, a lot of C-level people will say to us, we want our sellers, if you look at the final 3 modules, better at negotiating, better at handling buyer tactics and overcoming resistance, and better at closing. We would say the reason for that is we have, usually they haven't done the upstream part of the sales process particularly well. Sorry, just to go into Emma, your question there to answer that. Yes, there's no reason, because all these programs are going to be run online. There's no reason why people from other countries can't join, but they will be run in English. We've all run a lot of international training over the years for multiple audiences, but if they're in Europe, we've only got an hour, worst case 2 hour time differences. So that will work well. It's only when you're doing Asia Pac or the US where you've either got to start really early in the morning or finish really late. But we don't mind doing that either. So just going back to the kind of question before, I hope that answers your question, Emma. Just going back to this, where the problems occur. Generally, they occur through poor discovery. I see too many companies, particularly in the tech sector, that are obsessed with this kind of get a demonstration, get them to book a demonstration. I'm going, why would you want a demonstration without really understanding the need, without being able to build value in the solution so you can tailor the demonstration or the presentation to the challenges that they're having within the business that are preventing them from achieving their desired outcomes. So most of the magic happens in the upstream part of the sales process, which makes the downstream process, those last 4 or 5 bullets, much easier if we do that part well. So there'll be a huge focus on how do we build much better discovery? How do we, as a business, create much better differentiation and build a perception of value in the client so that not only do they choose us, they actually go ahead. So many projects stall because the client hasn't seen a problem that's big enough to spend money on. And that's a real issue. One other thing that, and this kind of links into Sales Management Academy, is, and again, I'll throw this out as a question, how many people have heard, I use the term happy ears? That's sellers who tell us about things that are coming in, that get stuck in pipeline or stall or get lost. How much of a challenge is that across your business, which impacts, say, pipeline management and forecasting accuracy?
Brent, that one, it's a huge problem. And it seems to be the more that you put pressure on the salespeople to deliver, the happier ears they get.
Yeah, absolutely. Because salespeople obviously are in fear of losing the job, particularly if they're way behind on target. So they always have that kind of golden ticket that well, this is going to come in, and very often it doesn't. We know that. We in a previous life, we always had a saying in our business: never get stuck on amber. which really means far better off making that this isn't going ahead, let's move forward, or let's put it back into prospecting. But when you ever see something that gets stuck in pipeline month after month, guess what? Usually it's not going to close, unless you're on a very long-term sales cycle. Yes, Ellie? Okay. It's a good point. The markets, vary by markets. Just one thing I would say here, because we hear this a lot, and I actually don't agree with it, but I don't want to be too controversial. People say, yeah, but selling is very different in our industry. And we don't really believe that. We believe there are obviously nuances, but the sales process, following a sales process in a structured way, is pretty much the same across all businesses. I've been doing this best part of 20 years, Ellie and Anthony over 10 years. And I think you'd agree that most of the issues we see resonate across different businesses and different sectors. Is that fair? Okay. Final one really on the Advanced Academy. Again, I would say, yes, you can have, to answer your question, Grant, yes, you can have more people attending more than one programme, or more than one person on the same programme. I think if you wanted to book 8 places, we might be saying, well, you might be better off running your own training programme. If you're booking, say, 8 or 9 places on a single course, it might not be as cost effective. But, if you want to put 2 or 3 people on one course or put people on different courses, you'll have to register them in different ways. I'll show you that at the end. But the final point I was going to make on the Advanced Academy is, I think for people in account management roles these days, account management as we used to define it is dead in the water. And the reason I say that is I think we almost need a new term, and that's account development. Because if you are not only just servicing an account, then you're probably going backwards in it in this day and age. What are you doing that's really enhancing your client's business, that's making your client's business better? What are you introducing into that account? How are you making it stickier? And how are you making those switching costs more difficult for them? So there's loads of things we'll do around that as well that I think could be advantageous for people who are in account management roles, which I want to term account development. Okay, so final one here, the Management Academy, which I will be running. Question, how many of your sales managers, and they don't have to be pure sales, they could be customer success, they could be customer services, they could be SDR managers, anybody who's basically interfacing with clients, how many of them do you think as a percentage got promoted because they were good in the previous role? It's a classic, isn't it? It's almost a rhetorical question. We know it's I don't know whether you've heard of the Peter Principle. Yeah, you're right, Jonathan. It's the Peter Principle that everybody gets promoted ultimately to their own level of incompetence. And that's because suddenly we put them into a role where the skill sets are fundamentally different. Somebody released a sort of snapshot of a podcast I did recently where I said, half the problem is these people end up as your super sellers. They're not doing the job of coaching, motivating, inspiring their teams, which is really the job of a manager and a leader. And I said, I often ask that question to managers, what's the most important part of your role? It's to develop my team. How much of your working week do you spend doing it? Maybe 5% or less. So the most important part of your job, you spend the least amount of time doing. It's kind of a madness. So we talk about managing people based on different skill and will issues. Which do you think, by the way, which do you think is harder to manage, skill or will? Answer, please.
Will.
Will, thank you. Yeah, will's always much harder to manage. Hence why we say, recruit, attitude, and train. But if you bring new people into the business and you don't train and coach them, that will can easily slip, particularly when they start failing. So we do a heck of a lot on, how do we move people to the right and upwards? We have a 9-box grid and in that top right-hand corner is the star performer. When I ask teams how many people are in that grid, it's usually maximum 1 or 2, and there's a lot of people that are right in the middle, which is the comfort zone, and there are a few people to the left, which is lower will, and there are people towards the bottom, which are lower skill. How do you move them up and right? We'll be doing a lot on that, and the managers will have a task to coach a single individual, and at the end of the management, they will have to evidence or a presentation what they've done to change that and where that person is sitting now 3 months later. So there's got to be something really practical in terms of the accreditation process for the managers. We also, and we talk with BGF a lot about this because they sit on a lot of boards, one thing we really want to work on is how do we create greater pipeline management and forecasting accuracy? Quick question again. How accurate is forecasting and pipeline management in your business on a scale of 1 to 10? Anybody like to say? A 5. Okay, great. We've got some 5s coming in. 2. Oh yeah, Simon. Right, we can work on that. 5, yeah, I'm not getting much above 5 at the moment, which shows it's a real issue. And one of the ways to overcome that, thanks for those answers, one of the ways to overcome that is instead of doing kind of fireside one-to-one chats, use those meetings as a coaching conversation. When you're going through somebody's pipeline, the first question I will ask, and I've been a sales director for probably 30 years, tell me why this deal isn't going to close. It's a great question. Tell me what could prevent us from working with that client in 2 months' time. So once you start doing that, you start to be able to work out what the blockers are, and then you can create your plan to go forward and go, okay, this is what we need to remove. These are the actions we need for the next meetings. The more you can get your client to put skin in the game at this point, the more you're leading that on, the less you're relying on those happy ears. Okay, so can we go on to the next slide? Sorry, Matt.
I just wanted to interject there. Obviously, we talk through sales qualification models as well. So whether you are an organization that uses MEDPIC or MEDIC or BANT, we had a new one the other week, which was Mandract. So we're very used to looking at what the market's doing from a sales qualification tool and utilizing that throughout the programs. But also if you've got your own sales methodology tool, we can also work on that from a simulation or role play environment throughout these programs. So that's also something I just wanted to put in on. Whatever you use, we'll be used to seeing that in the marketplace and holding that pipeline forecasting against that.
Yeah, it's a good question from David. I definitely think pre-sales, if they are customer facing, will definitely benefit. We've trained a lot of pre-sales people in the past. Just because it says a sales academy, I think any role that's interfacing with clients. Also, if you've got a pre-sales manager, management training that we do, it's really commercial management training, the management academy, I would say. So it cuts across all roles. But there's absolutely no reason why a pre-sales person wouldn't join the academy. They might, depending on their level of experience, be better suited on the emerging academy because they need to learn first principles. But depending if they are going out supporting a seller on a field sales role, for example, they're probably better off than on the advanced academy. Any views there, Ellie?
Yeah, I was going to say, all I'd add to that, if anyone has any questions like that post this session, feel free to send us an email with any of their general responsibilities or the KPIs that they're measured against, because then we'll be able to give you a much more of an informative answer around, as Bryn mentioned, whether it would be the emerging academy or around that advanced academy. And just a last point, because I know we are hitting the clock, but this can work really well as kind of a point in the chat around career development, that actually if we are looking at supporting individuals going from that emerging talent into that advanced and even to the management academy, we see these training programs work really well when they're used aside with that career development. So how do we support someone taking that next step in the business, even if they're not at that role just yet? But that is the last I'll say, Bryn, and then I will move to the next slide for you.
That's okay, great. Okay, so what's it all going to look like in terms of the format, the time frame on it, and what are we looking to produce at the end of it that really drives performance across your business. So it's going to be all run online. The logistics of companies across the whole of the UK mean that makes more sense. I think pre-COVID, I would have never known how to run an online training program, but we've run a few hundred since 2020, that's for sure, and it's pretty normal these days. I would say it's 90% as effective as face-to-face. Face-to-face is quite, a little bit more advantageous that people get to spend time with the colleagues that they haven't normally done. But apart from that, the training content's the same. The great thing about either Teams or Zoom is that you can use breakout sessions. The trainer can go into them. They can talk to the group. So each session will probably have 3 to 4 breakout sessions, and then we'll go back to the main group and we'll feedback. What did we think? What did we come up with here? So very much our style is learning by doing. It's not chalk and talk. We want people to get engaged and come up with their own answers and make mistakes. It's a safe environment. As I say, going back to the pilot story, it's the simulator. They can't cause any problem if they crash the plane in the simulator. We're going to run them every fortnight. They're going to be 3-hour sessions. They're going to be really in-depth, focused sessions on one specific or maximum 2 topics. We want to cap it at 12 people. We think 12, beyond 12 is the quality of the learning experience starts to diminish. 12 is always a good number because when it comes to breakouts, you can have 3 4s or 4 3s, works really well. And that will be for all the 3 programs. The program itself will run over a 3-month period. So if you think the first session is week 1, it'll be week 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So there's sort of 6 sessions. Yes, Jay, we can probably do that offline just because of the timer here, but we can talk about our experience of training other businesses. We've got a lot of feedback from all 3 of us, but we couldn't put it on the slide because it was too detailed. At the end of getting to 12 weeks, we're then going to be doing individual accreditations. So typically, the emerging talent will probably have to book a meeting over the phone with the trainer. The advanced sales will probably have to run a discovery meeting. We haven't quite formulated that, but they're typically accreditation exercises that we run. And the sales managers in the first program will be given the task of coaching someone, and they'll have to present that back. Okay, so at the end of it, what are people going to get out of it? The accreditation, it won't be pass or fail. We don't want to make it too scary for people, but we do want to feedback on strengths and development areas. But we will obviously have observed those people over a number of sessions, and we will do a kind of, a paragraph report on strengths, a paragraph on development areas, and then an action plan. We want to create that with the delegates themselves. What are you going to do differently? What are you going to change as a result? What are you going to start doing, stop doing, continue doing as a result of this training? They will also, the good news is we've been talking with the ISP, we're already an ISP accredited business, that all the programs will have ISP, that's the Institute of Sales Professionals. And so everyone will get an ISP certificate and will automatically become an affiliate member. If they want to then join the ISP as a full member, they'll get a 50% discount. It's normally £150 a year. They'll get that for £75. And I haven't yet spoken with my CEO or Matt, but I think we'll be able to include the certification within the cost. It's going to be a digital certification. Okay. Any questions on that before we move on? We're nearly through. Okay, so how are we going to measure the program? I think three ways. What is the individual going to come out with it from? I think certainly both from the emerging and advanced academies. a much better qualification process so that they are maximising their time and optimising their performance by making sure they're going for the right kind of ICP. They know how to qualify the opportunity and they're not wasting time. How are we then bringing down the conversion rates from whatever they were, one and whatever, to making sure those are significantly improved? How are the managers improving their coaching? It's something I'm really passionate about. There's nowhere near enough coaching done in business, but that's because most people don't know how to coach. And I don't want to put you on the spot now, but for example, if I said to you, what do you think is the difference between feedback and coaching? Could anybody give me a really good answer? Okay, and the answer is most people don't know. Tom, you want to have a go?
Yeah, because I've done a qualification in feedback and coaching, so I should.
Oh, brilliant! You're just the man then.
Coaching is the ability to help the individual to find the answer for themselves, whereas feedback is directing the answer to the individual.
Okay. The only I'd agree with 80% of that. I'd say both are ask, because the more the coachee owns it, I'd say feedback is what happens immediately. Feedback is instant. We've listened to a call or we've observed a meeting and we're going to have a chat in a coffee house afterwards, and we're going to go, how do you think that meeting went? What do you think, what were your objectives for that meeting? What do you think you could have done differently? What do you think you did well? All those questions, we're trying to get the coachee to understand that our alignment, the alignment of the manager as to whether that was a 5 out of 10 call or an 8 out of 10 call. If they think it's an 8 out of 10, we've got to get them to realise maybe it was a 5 out of 10, but we've got to do it without undermining their confidence and stripping them down a pace. So getting them to do that, feedback needs to be instant. Coaching, I think you're absolutely right there. Coaching is the intervention we put into place as a result of the feedback. What we see a lot of, and I'm not going to bang on about this, but what we see a lot of is we see feedback being done in companies, but then the coaching intervention isn't put into place. So the learning doesn't really incrementally happen because there's a disconnect then, and or the coaching gets cancelled because the manager or leader has a big meeting, and therefore it's not recognised as something that's really critical. Okay, so just that's really what they're going to get as individuals. It's going to improve pipeline management and forecasting. The aim is to meet and exceed business KPIs and reduce those deals that get stuck in pipeline, and also reduce the losses by making sure we go for the business we think we've got a good chance of winning. Ultimately, that should result in bigger deal values and more deal value, more deals. Reduction on founder and C-level reliance. It happens far too much, particularly in early stage companies where you're brought into virtually every deal. And I think that will probably resonate with a lot of you. How do we actually, you're not going to scale if you're having to do that all the time, and you're not going to be doing all the other critical things in your role if you're constantly being used as what I call a super seller. But the most important thing here is also pipeline management and forecasting accuracy will be that much greater. If you're in a manufacturing business, forecasting accuracy is critical because you need to know what production lines and everything else. Critical in most businesses, to be fair. Okay, next slide. Why us? And I don't want to bang on because I hate that where you talk about yourself in the presentation the whole time, but ultimately we are a part of the family. We're a BGF-backed business. We were voted this year the 30th fastest growing private company in the UK by the Sunday Times in the Sunday Times Fast Track. So hopefully we're serving what we eat. Let's say we bring in people into our own business and put a lot of effort into training them to really understand the sales process and become more effective. We are ISP endorsed, as I've said, and we're Ofsted outstanding, things I've repeated before. We've got a short case study there. We can talk offline about our other experience, which covers many different businesses across a multitude of different sectors. We're sector agnostic. We've trained businesses in virtually every sector. We've got, I think, well over 40 years of training experience between the three of us. Matt and I go back about 18 years working together, and Maurice has just joined us. So we've got a really strong team we're building here. It's very much learning by doing. We are ultimately, first and foremost, sales practitioners. I've been in sales for many years, so I've sort of made all the mistakes and learned along the way. But also, I think it helps that we worked in sales roles before we started training people. Okay, next slide. So just a little bit about the three of us. Anthony, I think, has spoken before. Anything to add there, Anthony? Anthony hates seeing his feedback. He's got so much good feedback, but he doesn't. You know, I always think modest is overrated, Anthony, but you don't.
In preparation for this call, yeah, Bryn's asked me multiple times to send feedback over. I eventually sent some lovely quotes. You can see one there, and then he warned me to make sure my head will still fit out the door on my way out of the office. So after trying all that feedback.
So we trained many people in the academy. Ellie, anything more to add? I know you've been over to Florida last year and having these lovely sort of holiday training exercises.
Yeah, we'll call it holidays, but it's definitely a work trip. But yeah, no, only thing to add, Bryn's already said that we've all been in sales, but also trained at all levels of sales. So experts in getting the most out of those individuals for your business and seeing the return on investment off the back of the training.
Yeah, and I think I've probably trained about 10,000 people over the last 18, 19 years, right across every continent. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of traveling there, but also these days, most of it's done online. So very, very used to that. Ran a very big management academy across 32 countries. It was management leadership, and they had a very formal accreditation. It was pass or fail. Didn't mean that the manager or leader lost the job, but it wasn't great for them to go back to their country and say, I've got to resit it. So we can talk about our experience, you know, certainly offline to people, but suffice to say, it's pretty comprehensive, I think. Okay, next slide. How to register. This is the final slide, really. There is an online portal we've created. There's a QR code we're going to show you in a second. You have to register per course so that we know where we're at and how many people have registered per course. For that 3-month period, it's £2,000 per person for the Emerging and the Advanced Academy and £3,000 for the Management Academy. As I say, the outputs there'll be at the end of it, there'll be an accreditation, there will be a report based on that accreditation, what we've seen over that 3-month period with an action plan, and hopefully the line manager will be engaged with that as well. I think that would be a great thing for companies to do, to get the line managers for the salespeople to be engaged with what we want to see as a next step. And there will also be ISP certification. The one thing we can't always track, but we want to keep it close to your businesses, is how that's impacting the business. So we come from a sales background, we're passionate about targets, we're passionate about ROI. So what we really want to do is know how that's actually moving the dial within your business and creating that leap forward. Okay. And the final slide is the QR code. We'll send these slides out. So if you don't click on that now, we will do. You can pay via Stripe. I'm not going to go into that in great detail, but you can pay via Stripe. If you don't want to use a credit card, we can always invoice you and you can pay in the normal way. But the only thing we'd say is people need to have paid before the course starts. We haven't fixed the date yet, but we imagine it's going to be somewhere between the end of February and the beginning of March to give people a bit of time for readiness. As soon as the cohort gets filled, we will start to put the dates forward. Just before we do, and do you want to close the slides now, please, Ellie? So we can see everyone, and thanks for that. We've got a few minutes if anybody's got any questions. We will put together what those modules look like. Does anybody, though, have particularly good or bad days you think that they want to run on? We can't obviously accommodate everybody's wish, If you've got a bunch of managers, for example, what would be a good time or day? You don't have to tell us now necessarily, but it'd be good to get your feedback so we sort of go with a consensus. Okay.
Bryn, I just wanted to add, obviously, we've walked you through what we would call our kind of open academy program there, where individuals across multiple companies and multiple sectors like we've got today can be trained. We also have a bespoke tailored solution that's delivering probably 40 to 50 days per month. And that is organizations who I would say have 6 or more individuals with a specific need. It may be more cost effective for you to do a bespoke program just for your company and your team.
Yeah.
Bryn, I know there's a reach out either through Sophie or you.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in those topics and you think, hey, we've got enough people to run our own in company with our own outputs, that is a fundamental part of our solution that we're delivering in the marketplace. So just wanted to leave that thought process for you.
Okay. I'm not against doing Friday afternoons, as long as we finish at 5 so we can go and have a beer. It's my only caveat.
Virtual.
So sort of probably 1:30 to 4:30 would be a good session on a Friday, certainly for managers, I think. Okay, we'll talk about that offline, but good to get your feedback. Just before we conclude, and before we ask for any final questions, if anyone's got any, Sophie asked me to say if anybody isn't happy for us to have their email sent, could you let Sophie know by close of play today? I imagine that you come on that you're okay to share your details with us, but we'd like to follow up. We're happy to have individual conversations if you want to know more as well. I'm around certainly the next couple of days, most of this week, to be fair, to have those conversations. If you just want to sign up, please go ahead. But any questions, please feel free to ask. Before we go then, we've managed it within the time, and thank you for your participation. Does anybody else want to ask us anything in the last sort of 5 minutes? Yes. No. Okay, my question to you is, what are your views from what you've heard today in terms of the concept that BGF and Flourish have come up with here? What do you think? What do you think of the concept generally?
Bryn, I can see we've got 2 hands up. So we've got
Victoria.
Apologies, I don't know.
Victoria, yeah, I can see you, and I can see. I don't know what your name. It says V head on this one.
So we're both Victorias, so that would be easy.
Okay.
So other Victoria, I'll just go first quickly. Although Matt was saying there's an opportunity to do some in-house if that works for the organisation, do you ever tailor your programmes dependent on the industry or the service? So we're professional service consultancy business, so there's a like for like in kind of in being in with others that are in that sort of field. Is that ever available?
Yeah, hi Victoria. So yeah, I think when you look at our bespoke solution, it has an upfront element that we call discovery and design. So that is exactly about contextualizing the learning to your organization, your people and your outputs. So you might have a common approach on, hey, 80% of that advanced content looks great for our people, but actually at the moment it's not tailored for our sector, our solution and our business outputs. So yes, in a bespoke program, discovery and design is done up front to make sure that that happens for you and your people. And also there's a 4th stage, which is called display, which is then how do we define those outputs that you as an organization want to see. So it is truly bespoke to you, your people and your organization.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I don't know whether Kim, you're still on because I can't see everyone here, but Kim Johnson, who's the Group Sales and Marketing Director for Red Industries. I did some work with them, and second time around I've trained Kim and their team in a company. So she's not a plant. Promise you that. It's not a plant in the audience. Is somebody we've actually trained pretty much across their team, including some work with the leadership team as well. Even the chief exec came on that program. So if you do want any referenceability from another BGF company, I think Kim would be happy to provide that. Are you still there, Kim, or not? Have you gone? Can't hear her.
No, and Victoria, I can also see that you've got your hand up as well.
Kim, and then Kim will speak. The hand's gone up, Kim. So yeah, Victoria first, then Kim.
Lovely, thank you. My question was, if you have a role which has head of sales responsibilities, but also has a personal target, so a hybrid role, which of those courses would it still be the Management Academy? And do you touch on curriculum, that kind of hybrid?
I would go in the Management Academy because I would be wanting them to go, how do I start to reduce the dependency on me by becoming a better manager and coach, and ultimately not have to carry such a heavy target? We realise in small companies you have to be that hybrid role, but as you scale, you want to be doing more management, coaching and leadership and less direct selling. So I think that would be a better programme.
Yeah, okay. And do you, in the curriculum, do you touch on that challenge in particular?
Yes, absolutely, because so many people, and I've been that person myself, as Matt has, where it's very much you're double-hatted and you don't always prioritise your time with your team as a result of it. And as a consequence to that, you never really scale as fast as you'd like to. That's from my own experience. Sorry, Kim, can you have a quick word without too much of a part of the little broadcast?
Can you hear me? He didn't come through before.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Bryn, I've worked with you over a number of years, and I think, you know, recently you've worked with Red Industries to train customer service executives, account managers, upcoming account managers, new business development managers, and also the executives within the business. Everybody took something away, you know, something different that resonated with them. And it isn't just something that, you know, when they left, that was it. People were talking about it for weeks. It makes people think about what they're doing, their qualifying opportunities. And it was nice to see people started talking in a more kind of salesy fashion. Oh, I've got a couple of opportunities here. I've got 3 appointments booked. And, you know, and they're able to give you that information on that qualification. So, you know, seeing that training firsthand and actually having the training myself, I would highly recommend it.
Thank you, Kim. The champagne's in the post.
Thanks, Ben.
Just mindful of everybody's time. We've just got 1 minute, so I guess if we've not got any further questions, I guess just to say thank you to Bryn and the team for that session. Really interesting and some valuable insights there, food for thought. As mentioned, if you don't want any follow-up materials from this session, please do drop me an email today, and I'll obviously make sure I take you off the list. Equally, this session will be put on Scale and sent out to all of the people that registered for it as well, just as a recording in case you want to catch up on anything or miss anything. Equally, if you have any other questions, do drop them to me. You've all got my email, and I can forward them on to Bryn and the team.
Great. Yeah, thanks for everybody for attending. It's really appreciated, and we really look forward to working with you, as many people as possible over the next few months. Looking forward to it. It's exciting.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bryn.
Bye.